Let me welcome to the show. I have many, many questions for this gentleman. He is the author of Kosher Soul, The Faith and Food Journey of an African-American Jew. Say what now? Let me welcome Mr. Michael W. Twitty.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm awesome. Honored to see you. Okay.
You.
Now, I actually don't think it's a huge leap as a person that has a mezuzah on her door, on all of her doors leading into my home, from being Black to being Jewish, because Jesus was Black. And the first converted Christian was an African. So I feel like it's redundant to call yourself, a Black Jew. But tell me how your journey to Judaism came about, and then we'll get into the food.
So this is very specifically, I use the words African American. When the New York Times piece came out about African American celebrations on Passover, what we served, those conversations, like people were writing and talking about, what about the Ethiopians? I'm like, no. What about people right here in this country? What about the story of Jews of color in the Americas for the past 500 years? It's a part of the American, African diaspora and Jewish diaspora stories that rarely gets told. So while I could have written some long, drawn out history, I decided not to, because I wanted to give that kind of information the right time and space it needed to really get through to people. But I definitely have undergirded this book, which is a food memoir with recipes. Definitely talks about our identity as Jews of color in the New World.
I actually love that you use food as an entree. See how I use that? Into this conversation, because food is galvanizing. It is something that brings people together. It is a bridge. When we talk about American cuisine, you cannot talk about American cuisine without all of the things that people brought from all different places, whether we're talking about hot dogs or rice, any kind of rice dish, high Africans. So you starting it with mishpacha. Is that how you say that? Mishpacha?
You got it, mishpacha, yeah.
Mishpacha. Okay, because there's a lot of in the
yes.
Yiddish. There's a lot of phlegm going on. Baruch Hashem. There's a lot of that. Mishpacha. What is that word, and how does it relate to what we're going to experience in Kosher Soul?
It means kinfolk. It means family. And as I'm a Black person, we always ask, who you kinfolk? Who you kin to?
Who your people?
Who your people?
Who your people?
Yeah. Who them? And say Sierra Leone, Salon them. Who them? Meaning, who you connected to? The words mishpacha and landsman, mishpacha in Hebrew, it means, family. Judaism is not a faith. Judaism is the religious culture of the Jewish people. And so, in Christianity, you have an ecclesia, you have a church. You can be brothers and sisters in Christ. In Islam, you're part of an ummah, which is a brotherhood, sisterhood. In Judaism, you're part of mishpacha, because every person is basically placed on this family tree. So my Hebrew name is Akiba. Akiba was a scholar who was illiterate until he was about my age. And he had a religious awakening, and he became the greatest scholar in Judaism of his day. And then I'm Ben, son, Avraham Vasara. So it's like Abraham and Sarah, my mother and father, as if they gave birth to me themselves. So that's how we understand ourselves, as part of a family. And of course, in the queer sense of who I am, the old way of saying it was, oh, it's so-and-so family, meaning, are they LGBTQ too? So there's this triple sense of belonging, even though you're an outlier, even though you're an outsider, you always have some kind of family and kinfolk to cling to.
Is food to you magical? Can it transform people and experiences?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nothing, when I was growing up outside of Washington, D.C., we used to go over people's houses after school, do your homework, play video games, whatever. You had to learn how to be able to say, hello, goodbye, thank you, You're welcome. Where's the bathroom? Can so-and-so come out to play? And I'm not hungry. Although I'm not hungry, always got, ignored. So, you go to a Filipino household, there was adobo and garlic rice and lumpia. You go to a Lebanese household, there was kibbeh and stuffed grape leaves and so on and so forth. And so for me, like, that was like being able to tour the world before I could even get on a plane.
Wow.
And of course, back then, we didn't have, none of our grandparents were in nursing homes. All of our, all of those cultures that I mentioned, East Asian, African, Black American, Middle Eastern, Latino, etc. Your elders, grandma and grandpa, or your great uncle, so-and-so wasn't very far. So to get that experience of talking to somebody who came from the old country, as it were, and eating that food was magical.
Love it.
866-801-8255. I just want to sit with you for a minute. Michael, how, I'm imagining you grew up in a Baptist or Pentecostal household. Michael,
I kind of wish I did, but I grew up in a kind of like a nominally Christian household.
Okay. What describe that?
So we when it came to church, I would probably be the most likely person to get myself together and go to a church. My mother wasn't really feeling as much. My grandparents, they had very different lives, but they were all believers, but it was not something where you had to get to go to church every Sunday and you had a whole ritual. Their parents, the way they grew up, that was the way. Sunday was an entire day, and if even when you were done with your church, you went to your friend's church after that church. And, of course, you got to eat well all day long. But I mean, it wasn't the same. So for me, growing up in our neighborhood, in our community, I remember every fall playing in the sukkah, the hut that, we put up in the fall. I remember, going to bar and bat mitzvah. I mean, getting up for Jewish holidays. I mean, interestingly enough, a lot of my childhood was spent learning the basics of Judaism without being Jewish. That's a lot of people who are Black. That's their experience, or the fact that their family adhered to customs, values, traditions that came from Judaism or the Hebrew Bible. So for me, we were all sorts of different traditions. We had a nominally Christian household. There was a lot of openness, and my family had traveled the world. So I learned from all of that, but then at the end of the day, made my own decisions.
That reminds me of when my kids were, I have two children. And my son, when he was 13 years old, he asked, because he was getting all these invitations to bar and bat mitzvahs. He said, "Mom, are we Jewish?" And I was like, no, we're not. But similar to you, he was doing both of my kids were doing a lot of learning because they had a lot of friends who were of the Jewish faith. So I guess I'm curious about how did you convert? I mean, how did that happen? How did you get to where you are?
So I'll have this conversation with you all. I generally will not have the conversation if I'm within the Jewish community, and there's a reason why. I realize that the audience for this program, because I listen to this program fairly often, may not be the same. But to explain to people, so in traditional Judaism, your mother is the one who carries your Jewish line identity. Now, in the Reform and other liberal modern movements, it can be your father as well. But traditionally, across the board, the mother is the passport, the main passport. I come from a family that is, like many Black American families, mixed in origin. When I was doing my first book, The Cooking Gene, which told the story of my family from Africa to America, from slavery to freedom through food, I did a lot of genetic genealogy. And one of the things that really surprised me was I had quite a bit of unassigned DNA, and some of that goes back to Jewish Ukraine. So, which, again, not that uncommon, because what do marginalized and oppressed people do?
Move.
They move, they move around, and they also mate.
Right.
So there's a reason why that There's a reason why everybody has a Cherokee grandmother whose hair was so long and so black, he could sit on it. I know what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we all have those narratives of those, whether they're that narrative, which is very, funny, because it's like, it did happen that way. But like these narratives of outlier and oppressed people living in the same spaces. So I had Jewish ancestry on my mom's side, but not through her mom, through her father. And I converted with an Orthodox, with 3 Orthodox rabbis 20 plus years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Why?
First reason was that if you know the Jewish community, converting Orthodox is the only conversions actually accepted across the board. But also I belong to an Orthodox Sephardic synagogue. Okay, Sephardic and Ashkenazi. Sephardi, Middle East, Mediterranean, Ashkenazi, Eastern Europe. So that's pretty much why. I mean, I was very accepted, very encouraged in that community, and it was more easy for me than it was for a lot of people. I know people who've had to move to be in a community or whatever because of the Sabbath. Yeah, I didn't always have it easy, but I had it easier than most. And coming out of the mikveh when I converted was like, it was like, okay, a formality, because it was already part of the community.
Yeah. Now the mikveh is the bath. The mikveh is the cleansing. Yeah. So full disclosure, for 4 years, I did a radio program with an Orthodox rabbi, Shia Hex, from the Lubavitch sect from New York, Brooklyn. And so my first day on the air, his wife had to be in the studio because, that sect, you can't touch another woman. You can't touch a woman that's not part of your family. And to be in a close studio with me, she stood in the corner the whole time. I was like, ma'am, you don't have anything to worry about. Trust me and believe. Ain't nothing happening. Ain't nothing going on here but the rent.
Ain't nothing going on but the rent. That's right.
Nothing.
You gotta be with me.
Shoot. But but it forced me to learn, because we were battling every day to go deep into the Torah, which is our Old Testament. And on many days I would stump him as a rabbi. It was hilarious to me because I'm that person, by the way. I'm very contrarian. So it's interesting that 90+% of people in Israel do not practice Judaism religious the way you do. What you do, Michael Twitty, they're cultural Jewish. They adhere to the culture, but they do not practice the religion. And it's interesting to me that you're required to be Orthodox in order to be Jewish, when majority of the people who are Jewish do not even practice the religion.
Yeah, you could be, you could come through Reconstructionism or renewal or reform. But for me, one thing I always remind people is that, especially within the American Jewish community, which is predominantly white, and just a hair, like 55% unaffiliated. In other words, they might belong to a synagogue at some point in their lives, but not always. Like you said, mainly secular. I remind them, I said, the culture is a part of me too. I get all the jokes. I make the jokes. I make the culture. When you teach people's kids across all those different movements for 15 years, and you're a part of the lives of those families, and you see the whole spectrum, and also you cook the food. Come on. That's a big part of it. The food is a huge part of both being Black and being Jewish.
All right, let's get into it. Kosher Soul. That's your handle, Michael Twitty. It's also the name of your book. And I remember the first time I got a hamantash from a student when I was teaching at NYU. He brought me a whole apricot raspberry. It was delicious, by the way. That was before I got into, the religion. Please help me with gefilte fish and Please help me with gefilte fish. Just please help me with it.
You had to go to that one. Okay, let me just make it plain for you. Gefilte fish is an excuse. It's a vehicle. You know how chitlins are a vehicle for hot sauce?
Okay, all right. You just made the connection. That's all you had to say was chitlins. That's all you had to say.
It's an excuse to like eat horseradish. Now, if you just ate horseradish on its own, I sit down there and join you. But because you have to have an excuse, that's what gefilte fish does. And you know, also I joke a lot that we're the only two peoples that eat our oppression.
Oh.
You're like, have you ever been around Black folks who've been cooking with someone, especially someone who knows how to cook, and something doesn't come out right, and they say, taste this, it's nasty. And you go, what? Why do I? You know what? You got to eat it, it's nasty. You know, my mother used to do that, blessed memory. And then like, okay, so on the Jewish side, try it, it's terrible. And it's like, why do we have to eat our oppression, y'all? Can we just move on? Give ourselves free.
Wait, what do you mean? They're saying it's so bad. It's a communal experience. They're
yes,
so
you have
horrible. They want you to
share my pain.
Share my pain. And it's, you know, on so many levels, there's behind that, like, common humor is like a real lesson, right? That we teach our children to endure. We teach our children to share their, you know, we used to call lynching stories. Every day in the kitchen, it was like someone would walk in and vent the racial aggressions that they faced in the day and other stuff. And yet at the same point in time, like, the healing would begin. So I hope you all know that I'm looking at my kitchen door, and my kitchen door, I have a mezuzah, and I also have my mother's, grandmother's, and great-grandmother's hot comb nailed to the door like a mezuzah.
Wow. Love that.
Oh,
I absolutely. You know what, Michael Twitty, I could sit with you all day and talk with you. I'm serious. I absolutely, you are so fascinating and amazing. 866-801-8255 is the number. I have so many questions. So where's Jesus in your life? And because you can't get through the Father except through Jesus. So how you working that out? How you working out that?
Oh, I'm not. The Christian tradition to me is a very nice tradition of my mother, my grandmother, and my father, blessed memory. But I am a, you know, a faithful Jew. To me, the Mashiach is yet to come. And that's not the focus of my life. I want to do the things that make the Mashiach feel like the world is worth redeeming. So I do. So for me, you know, Judaism gave me an opportunity to focus my energy in different ways. And the great thing about it is, though, going into Judaism and being a Hebrew school teacher as someone who was Christian, I'm able to do some healing between the communities, because I think there's a lot of suspicion and a lot of like animosity. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how the other side believes and thinks. And I'm just like, no, this is to put it in a framework. But also even using phrases like the Black church. I have to explain to people that the Black church could be the NOI. The Black church could be Jehovah's Witnesses. The Black church is a phrase that we've coined to talk about the Black experience with spirit.
right.
And it's ecumenical. So having people understand that you will see things and hear things in me that I can't purge because I grew up with, you know, grandma from Alabama, grandma from Virginia, granddaddy from South Carolina. You will always, I say, Lord have mercy. Well, you know where that comes from. Or if I say, or, you know, I'm just like, when I taught Hebrew school, I was no joke. I was like, all right, now I want y'all running around here. That is definitely my upbringing from what I know. But at the same point in time, you know, there are things that are me that are culturally different. When I'm around, you know, folks who grew up in the more mainstream way, they're like, why do you do that? Why do you say a quick prayer? Because that's the way we do it in Judaism or Jewish culture. And there's Jewish cultural things that we do that are very different. For example, conversational overlapping. When people, so for example, us three are talking right now. If all three of us were talking at once, somebody would walk past and go, oh, some rude people. What is wrong with them? In Jewish culture.
Or they would think it was The View.
Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
It's arguing. It's right. It's overlap. It's haggling. It's conversational haggling. And we think it's okay. But if anybody else is like, what? It's, you know, so I have to explain myself a lot in terms of that kind of cultural code switching.
I just want to clarify, not clarify.
Mhm.
I want to sit in a space for a second. Many people believe, I feel like evangelicals, they're trying to usher in the second coming of Jesus, right? So the revelations, there has to be, this war, and it happens. Russia might be the place that is the source. So they're doing everything to create an environment for Jesus to come back, which is wholesalely negative and destructive to humanity. You said you want to make the world a place right for the Messiah to come.
Right.
I want to sit in that for a second, because if we follow the Michael Twitty and maybe Judaism's way of seeing the Messiah coming, maybe there's no conflict there. Maybe if we all lean into making the world a better place, maybe Jesus will come back. Maybe Jesus will come for the first time. The Messiah will come for the first time. Who cares? If we're all living in the kind of world where we're respecting and loving each other.
One is,
Thoughts on that?
I've said this before though. One is a philosophy of death, of destruction. Another one is a philosophy of life and recovery and healing. And it doesn't have to be, you have to put a label to it. It's no one's necessarily Jewish or Christian, but the brand of Christian nationalism that we see now is definitely does not care if another tree falls, doesn't care if the earth is spoiled, forget it. Doesn't care if a pandemic wipes us out, but I'm gonna tell you a quick joke. So this is the Jewish way. The scientist said that in 3 days, the whole world is gonna be underwater. So all the Christians got together and they started praying and saying, we're all gonna go to heaven, go with Jesus. And the Buddhists were like, the Buddhists and Hindus were like, we should pray for reincarnation and we should be fish. All the Jews said, we have 3 days to learn how to have synagogue underwater and learn how to breathe and also figure out Passover. You get it? So we trying to live. We trying to do this thing. We have to change it up. That's what we got to do, because we've been doing that for 3,500 plus years. That's what we got to do. That's the Jewish way of looking at things. We ain't trying to go out.
Why can't we make space for all of this, right? I firmly believe that Jesus was here. I follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. I love the words in red in my New Testament. I respect deeply Islam. I read the Quran. I love the poetry and the simplicity of the words of Muhammad and the power of the women in Muhammad's life, right? I love that. I absolutely respect Judaism. And I also respect and love Buddhism and all of the things. And I don't know why we have to erase anybody's faith, belief in order to validate our own. I don't, that for the life of me, I can go all in on Jesus and love all of the things about being a follower of Christ, imperfect as I am, and leave space for everybody else, and even learn and enhance my walk, my faith, through learning more about yours. I don't know why we can't have space for all of that.
Well, the rabbis teach us who is wise, the person who learns from everybody. And if you look at the trajectory of Judaism and encounter with other traditions, they're Boo Jews. They're Jews who heavily study Buddhist tradition and philosophy. And for me, there's a lot of African spirituality in my life as well. You can see behind me, my hanging from Benin that I brought back with me. I've been to the continent.
Is that a quilt?
It is an applique that represents all the kings. And I'm actually part Fon, which is the people who found the kingdom of Dahomey, which is today's Benin. And so for me, honoring ancestral tradition, following those same ethics, the most important element in traditional African religion is your character, same as Judaism. So for me, learning from that and being aware and respectful has been important to me. But so has learning from Native American spiritual and other things. There's lots of spaces where the interconnectedness and intersections can happen. But what the first thing you have to be willing to say is that, you know, everybody can't always be right all the time. You know, you have to be open.
Say that. Say, oh my God. I said, say that, because it feels like everybody, and especially right now in the current political climate we're in, it's like the loudest, the person with the loudest voice wins. And we know that's not true. We just know that's not true. When Karen says she wants to sit with you for a moment, I get it, because I would love to sit, you know, I'm a non-drinker, so I'm going to sit and have my seltzer water, but I would love to sit in conversation with you about any and everything. And if that were the case, what would be on the menu? That's what I want to know. And also where will we be eating?
So I always tell people, like, you know, part of the logic behind this book is putting the food in somebody's mouth who needs to eat it and shut them up for at least long enough for that so I can talk, get my say out. I can have my truth be told. You know, put this collard green crep block in your mouth, chew repeatedly, keep your mouth shut. Let me teach you something.
Collard green, what now? What you doing with the crep?
Crep block is a food that it's like a Jewish wonton.
Oh, with collard green, you look how you just made that delicious. Just really quickly.
Yeah. And I make matzo meal fried chicken, and I make West African inspired brisket, berbere brisket. Berbere is a seasoning from Ethiopia. I make, you know, kosher soul spring rolls, is the recipe for that in the book, which is pastrami and collard greens. Yeah, I do a lot of the stuff. We just sweet potato kugel. I mean, all of it.
And that's in kosher soul. All right. All right. 866-801-8255. I'm gonna ask you to stick around, but I want to take some calls as well. People want to talk to you, and they have questions or comments. Angelique in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You're on with Michael W. Twitty. Kosher Soul is the book. You're on. Welcome.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
To your guest.
Hi.
I just want to mention that I am now practicing Messianic Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the Apostolic Church, you know, speaking in tongues and all of that, and I'm kind of okay with that still. But like about 30 years ago, I pretty much had a revelation through Bible study that the holidays that we celebrated, Christmas and Easter, wasn't what we were supposed to be doing. So with Leviticus 23, that pretty much showed me the whole line of the feasts of the Lord. And it was just interesting to hear your guest, and I'm going to buy his book because, yes, I still love soul food, but I'm trying to stick to the kosher, you know, plan. But it's just exciting that the revelation, I think I'm pretty much on course with, you know, faith and all that. So anyways, your topic was interesting.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Angelique. And while I do definitely love Jesus, somebody in the chat on Nubia said African spiritualism. Yeah, I think that's foundational. I think it's very hard to be Black and really tap into yourself and not connect to your ancestors and not connect. And it's inherent. Like, if we're being honest,
there.
It's inherent. It just is. So I didn't think I had to state it. It just is. Those of us who know what we know. Mary in Tennessee, she's a theology student. She has a question for you, Michael. Hi.
Hi, Karen. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Mary.
I love the topic, and I'm just really, really enjoying this. This is awesome. But I love you, and I listen to you every day, Karen. Anyway, but I had a gentleman tell me one time that there were no Black Jews. So it wasn't something. He said that that was something that, you know, we could never participate in because there were no Black Jews. And I told him, get thee behind me, Satan. That is not right. But I do feel like, you know, I love Jesus. I'm a Christian, born, baptized believer. I'm not going to throw that out. But at the same time, what you guys were saying is I can incorporate it all because I feel like it's all a part of who I am and what I'm learning, and I'm opening up to so many things. But I love the topic. I'm really, really enjoying it. This awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. The goal here is freedom for everybody listening. And part of the freedom has to be within ourselves, right? To unlock those things and not get so rigid and scared, and, you know, to not allow yourself to have the greatest experience you can have on this earth. You're here.
And don't you think, Karen, this is sort of like what Dr. Robin was talking about? It's like when you're secure enough in your personhood or whatever, you can make room for other things, right?
Absolutely. And we will. Michael, will you stick around? I'm looking at the clock. We got to go to a break.
Sure.
Will you come? Okay, because I have other questions. And I think Mary might have had a question. If she does, stick around, Mary, and ask your question. 866-801-8255 is the number. Akiba bin Ibrahim is here, also known as Michael W. Twitty, author of a bunch of books, including Kosher Soul, which we're talking about today, the faith and food journey of an African-American Jew. Renee Seiler is here as well. Good Enough Mother. She is my co-host. Yes. Akiba, Michael, I imagine your openness, or your road, I'm going to use a Christian term, your road to Damascus might have started with an acceptance of yourself earlier than the religious walk. Maybe your sexuality was the precursor to you like having the freedom to explore other things. Tell us about that journey.
You called it right. That interconnectedness and intersections between different parts of me, you know, opens up your brain and your soul to say, well, I'm going to create myself. You know, in Ghana, which is one of my other homelands, they say that the human being came to seek a name, nothing more. That's your destiny point.
Pause.
Okay.
Pause and repeat, and then slow down.
All right.
The human being does what now?
To seek a name, nothing more.
Came to seek a name. What does that mean?
A name, your life, your destiny, your path, the person that the divine needs you to be your part of the world. You know, naming is a very sacred part of African tradition. I have more than one name. Akiba is my Hebrew name, but Kwesi is my Ghanaian name, my Kande name. Ifeanyichukwu is my Igbo name, which means, you know what? If God wills it, can't nobody break it. You know, Ifashesin, my Yoruba name, wisdom is to be honored. You know, we can go on all day with that, but it's important that you know your names and have their names and earn them and live up to them. Not everybody gets to be an ancestor. And that journey starts here. So for me, that kind of like understanding who I was, no matter what the world told me, whatever the world told me different, that's on the world. That's a them problem. You know how we see on TikTok these days, a them problem. But for me, it was just about figuring out who I was supposed to be, moving on that. And I look at it like we have like a toolbox. All these different parts of me have their attractors, their people who are infatuated with them, but don't really give us the respect. Some love us to death. Some hate on us to death. But the reality is I have a similar toolbox with which to engage with the world and say, if somebody don't treat you right, or something's not going the way you need to go, you have these 3, if not 4 or 5 wells of tradition to draw on to make your way through the world. And I would add being a Southerner to that as well, especially being a Black Southerner.
Right. And so I'm sorry, Karen, go ahead.
No, why would you say that everyone doesn't get to be an ancestor? Because that is, you just spoke a whole sermon with that. Actually, when you said it, it hit me, because I was like, just because you're dead doesn't mean you get to be on the other side. Oh, come on, Michael.
Right. Because you know what? You didn't do, and you didn't recognize. You know, people, when my first book was The Cooking Gene, and I spent a lot of time talking about needing to understand these people who came before us, going back across the ocean to our origins and beyond. I feel like none of us can understand like really what this whole program is about unless we talk to our Egun, talk to our ancestors, understand where they come from. And also people like, well, he's kind of a lot of different traditions going on here. I said, well, go to Africa sometime. I assure you that your grandma will make a lot more sense. The one who had like the Roman Catholic thing with the Baptist thing with the this and a picture of Elijah Muhammad up on the wall, but why didn't that West Africa, okay, is poly-spiritual. No, I didn't say poly-religious. I said poly-spiritual. My grandmother used to have a saying, one of these keys is going to get me up there. I don't know which one's going to work. So, when you have a vibration, when you're not aware, when you understand that your actions have reverberating consequences, when you understand that, it's not all serious, but it's serious, and the time is precious. When you really get into all those things, you understand that it's the steps to be an ancestor. There's skills, there's a skill set behind it, but not everybody gets on that level.
So then, Michael, do you feel that the weight of that statement in the things that you do, the works that you write, the food you create, do you feel that this is your journey toward being an ancestor?
Yeah. I mean, I have to ask myself, how come certain things have never abated from the time I was very little? And I guess, the only blessing I could find from Facebook is in reconnecting with the kids I grew up with. A lot of them look at me and say, wow, you were always that kid. You were always about, Black heritage. You're always about spirituality. You were out and about and proud of yourself when that wasn't even a thing. So you are your authentic self. And that's an honor. It's an honor to be told that, to realize that, it's not about finding myself. I done got found. I done got found out too. And it's a beautiful part of it. You talk about Hamantash, and I want to tell you, I didn't get the recipe in the book because I couldn't hunt the person down who had it, but I really wanted to put in a recipe for rum raisin Hamantash from West Indian Jewish woman that I know of. So I don't know if that does anything for you, but
rum raisin Hamantash. What? Oh my God. Haagen-Dazs
was better than that Juneteenth ice cream that they tried to sell.
Come on through. Oh my gosh. All right, your favorite recipe from Kosher Soul.
Okay, I'm not gonna BS you. I think it has to be the Kosher Soul rolls.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like this. Almost any combination of identities can fit inside a spring roll.
Okay.
It's like that's, to me, this is the thing that people are most scared of. They're scared of the fact that we are happily contaminated with the cultures that are all around us. They think that that there's a blessing in being in a bubble or a box, and there's not. We just are what we are, and we absorb all these things. And yes, it can be, if you want to be Jewish, it can be Jewish. If you want to be Black, it can be Black. If you want to be American, it can be American. Whatever your lens is. But if it's your lens, be about it and mean something.
I love you. I think I love you.